welcome to the A. Marie Speaks podcast, where I'm talking about all things introspection, spirituality, and happiness. Thank you so much for joining me here. Today is episode 42, and it is January 25th. Today, we have a full moon here. I believe in Leo, if you're into that. I myself am somewhat inspired and intrigued by astrology and astronomy. However, I have a variety of understandings and beliefs around it, where I don't tag too much weight into it. But I do find it curious, and I do mention it, here and there. And today it's been a little on my mind because it calls forth the ego. Leo in itself is such an interesting catalytic energy, archetype. The lion, the constellation, the king of the jungle that it represents. There's a lot in here that's relevant to what I'm talking about lately, about parenting, about seeking truth, about being honest with oneself first and foremost, but also allowing that honesty to cascade outwards and reflect out more light, more truth as we're interacting with others. And that lion-esque Leo energy is really perfect for calling out and pointing out things like our triggers, rough spots, places that might look like weaknesses, or perhaps even testing talents and skills, flexing our muscles a bit, right? Or testing boundaries in the other way of testing others' boundaries, seeing how firm they are, how strong they are in comparison to our own. And when we think about this under the umbrella of truth and honesty, I feel that's where we could really find balancing work, that alchemy and transmutation that's really at the core, I think, of all purposes here in the small processes of the world and of this life and reality. And so, I wanted to use the timing and the energies to just get on here and introduce and begin this new blog I put out about the attempt to define truth. I'm going to sort of revert to my initial intentions with the podcast and share a blog audio version. I feel that this topic of truth is such a beautiful, never-ending, interesting concept to peel back the layers upon, again and again, and to always find something new. So I'm hoping to share that newness and the intrigue with you, any listeners out there, but also to speak it out for myself, to create a firmer ground on which I stand and from where I share my life from and where I experience my reality from. And so with this sort of little intro, I guess I'm going to pull up my blog here. I am not quite positive I'm going to read verbatim the entire thing, but I'm going to sort of breeze through it. I started with introducing the videos that I've already done sort of on this same tagline of an attempt to define, complex subjects. And I have done videos on infinity, sovereignty, and intention, a way that I define it simply myself, and also talking about those distortions that I see and sense when I hear others speaking about these really broad topics. Sort of using the mainstream version as a testing ground, and then seeing how my responses and my reactions, weigh against those. So if you are interested in listening to me talk about those, and you could find links to those on the blog, which I will have linked here in the podcast. It's right at the very top of the blog. As I wrote, I might backtrack and make actual blog write-ups for those videos, make it a little more condensed and a little bit more black and white for people who are reading and only finding me on WordPress, maybe, or people who just enjoy reading. God forbid we still have people out there who enjoy actually reading and writing. And so, yes, perhaps I will create those at some point. But with this blog and the topic of truth, it's so mysterious, and there's so much ground to cover that it becomes clear right off the bat that truth is a paradox, right? If you really think about it. Because truth is constant, and yet it forever changes. What does that even mean, right? This is something that I have had to look at, walk around, and contemplate for years to start to comprehend and have a sturdy grasp on what exactly I am even looking at. Perhaps you're on this path as well, and you will be able to sympathize and hear the real gravity of this seeking, the eternal walking of the path. And if it sounds just like words, if it sounds like just another thing to you right now, or superficial, or if it sounds like, a really thin ice layer that you can walk on, it's going to crack immediately, believe me, I have felt that way. There's still plenty of things out there that I do feel that way. I just test, I just toe and press very lightly. Is it going to crack or not? Can I put half my weight on there or not? Right? But this understanding about truth being a paradox, this is the lake you can skate on. This is fully frozen. This is firm. And I have been skating on it now. And to enjoy the flavor and speed, the atmosphere available on this frozen pond kind of thing, this metaphor, right? It's invigorating. It's exciting. It's a renewal and a rebirth of the childlike curiosity within myself that I have been seeking and working to tap back into and hoping for, and kind of looking out there to get, and now here I am actually feeling from within and actually being able to say with validity inside myself that yes, truth is complex. It is complicated and chaotic. It is unique and individual. And yet, there is a structure. There's a framework, architecture, a skeleton, if you like that analogy. The bare bones we all begin with. We all have the same. And that's the truth. And that is truth. Truth is the bare bones. It is the frozen lake. And it's deeper than that, because once you skate on the frozen lake and you get comfortable in the season of winter's truth, boy, you better be ready for spring and spring's truth. And that's when it starts to melt. And if you can't swim and you don't know and understand that truth is more than it appears, that it's a paradox, that it is forever changing, and that actually truth was never the frozen lake in itself. Truth is perhaps more like water, if you could believe it. And that, yes, with the seasons changing, it will speak a new truth to you. That doesn't make it any less real, any less true than winter's truth with the frozen lake, right? And it'll take time of understanding, right? And walking around the border of the lake to realize, wait, the lake hasn't moved. I haven't shifted. Something is happening here called seasons, right? It might take you years to figure this out of what's happening. For a while, you could get stuck in thinking that truth is only the frozen lake and it disappears for a while. Or conversely, you could be tricked into believing that truth is summertime and it's a beautiful warm lake, that's been heated by the sun and is comfortable to be in and swim in and full of splashing and fun times only, in a comfortable, easy summer afternoon way. And then you're in for big shocks when fall and winter come. And perhaps it's a lot more uncomfortable for you to ever even accept that truth is a frozen lake. You don't like the idea of that truth. You hate winter and bundling up and skating and being cold and all of that. Doesn't make it any less truth, though, does it? Then we have to return and say to ourselves, wow, it's me, not the truth, that's changing here, right? Something is switching, but there's something underneath that hasn't changed. And this is what I mean about the paradox. Now that's been a little side note to my blog, but sometimes these beautiful visualizations and analogies speak more freely the truth, and I can tell what I'm meaning to say with more clarity through metaphors than I can to try to actually explain it in the first person view in this 3D earth world setting right now. Because back to my blog, it's a very difficult concept to grasp because it requires intellectual capacity to be able to hold open a full range spectrum of positive and negative in this information space, this infinite imagination space that's full of unlimited possibilities. And it's just a relative working of exploration of two opposing endpoints that you create a space between by pulling them apart so far. And how far you pull them apart creates the working space in between and allows a medial ground, a harmonious interchange of the two, right? And where that sits is the truth. And anyways, back to my blog here. I mentioned this fortune cookie that I found recently, and it really was like that little knock on the head. When you've had a lot of thoughts and ideas, and you have this sort of concept brewing and thinking over in your mind, thinking, should I do this? How could I do this? Maybe it comes out in a couple of ways, but not quite on point. I was doing this sort of about talking about truth, and then I've been knocked on the head with a very clear sort of nudge from the universe, this external, third-party source coming in, opening fortune cookie, and it said, truth is what stands the test of experience. I thought, wow, I have been circling around, beating around the bush, looking at metaphors and analogies and all these different explanations and examples of how to portray out to find this simple definition, to simply define it. And then I get this beautiful, Zen cookie that just does it for me. And it is. It is what stands the test of experience. There's another simple saying about truth is what's left after all things fall away. And I love that one as well. And I think I talked about that in the apocalyptic sense when I was describing and defining the apocalypse and parenting through the apocalypse, and what I mean personally about that term and the falling of the veil and finding truth within lies. And so I thought this was just a perfectly simple definition. And it snagged my attention, and that's where, of course, this new sort of 2024, getting into really plain language and speaking about truth and cutting out both the BS and just bringing things forth that are honest. And that's saying, okay, in every moment, with all of transactions that I can be consciously aware of, I'm going to seek clarity and honesty, just to see and observe what is, for all things involved, as unbiasedly and as accepting as I can, to then incorporate all those working pieces to find that harmonious solution. Not to be biasedly led by some kind of carrot on a stick in certain direction because the propaganda tells me that I should have this certain conclusion, but instead to look at all of the points and use my own truth and discernment to say what I should be following, to say what the conclusion of the data set is, right? And that is this true seeking that I'm trying to allow myself to do and try to bring in, the conscious awareness of that, so that, like the instructions, and like I've been talking about so much in my energetic series about how the small processes of every system follow the instructions and directions that have been set in place by the big system, by the original architecture, the system CEO, the person who set forth this entire working. They've written the directions, and all the smaller processes play out based on the directions they've been given. And if we don't like what we're seeing, right, then we'd correct the processes. We correct the instructions. We don't go in and try to change the processes against the current. You can't make workers go against their SOPs. Instead, you go and change the SOPs. And it's really that black and white. It's really that mundane in 3D. And what I mean by going inside myself is that my beliefs, my laws, and ideologies, that not only I tell myself energetically and emotionally and spiritually, but the same role is given, and there's instructions for the physical body, for the cells, for every process that's, anatomy and physiology happening within me. And in order to get the best productivity out of all processes, they need clear and simple directions. They need commands to follow that are positively aligned and that speak truly to the real truths of the overall alignment that I seek for my whole system. So to get in there and remind all of them and make sure that the instructions align with my truths is, been the work that I've been doing behind the scenes. And, it's exponential, the ripple effect, the symptomatic wellness, fluidity, and ease that I feel the repercussions coming through, But it's a continual coming back and a reminder every day and every moment to yourself to realign with these truths and to say yes to, again, I will seek this again. I will not turn a blind eye, right? And of course, like I'm saying, I'll get back to my blog here because now I've got off again. Of course, the quest for truth is nothing new. It is literally the entire purpose of us being here. And therefore, we can see that idea spread across all of humanity's history in these unending variations. And that's as plain and simple as something like understanding the hero's journey model and writing a story, right? Understanding the archetypes and cosmology, even. Anyways, but what I'm going on in my blog about, and I kind of reiterate, is getting back to the bare bones of plain language explanations of what I was just talking about. To look simply at concepts, to note the architecture, functions and processes available to begin with, so that when we do add our own personal touches, we can each do so in a more honorable, aligned way. So, what is truth exactly? I mentioned it's a paradox, right? And to me, and to many, I don't claim this ownership of this kind of summary of what truth is at all. But I'm going to give a brief explanation of what this paradox really is, right? There is only one truth. So truth is one thing. How do we know this? Why could we say this with any validity? How can you tap into a firm foundation of this knowing, so that no one could ever pull you astray of that? Well, it's pretty much as simple and as plain as there's just one thing happening here. Right? There's just, it is. The here and now just is. You are. There's not a lot of explanation or poking around needed. You don't really need another to confirm that you're alive, that you're thinking, right? That you're experiencing your day. It kind of just speaks for itself, right? This is how we know what truth is. It just is. So this one truth that many here claim ownership on, and that, excuse me, now I'm backtracking through my own words here, but that many see as a definition or as the explanation of truth, is this one truth. And this single truth can be interpreted in infinite ways, but its most basic form and its most clearly translatable is simply, I am. This is the truth. This is it. I am. And we can each say this and know it. When you say it, there's a reverberation within you, an energetic, a spiritual, a physiological expression of recognition. Think about it and say it to yourself for just a moment. I am. That's your truth meter. That is your compass. That feeling is what you should be course correcting against and seeking and moving towards. This one base truth, I am, spawns directly into the deepest and clearest reflection of it. We are one. One what? It's quite plain. It's a mystery. It's outside the realm of our capacity to see and understand what this one is, because we're within it. Imagine, if you could, a little old cell. Perhaps you remember from biology class or school long ago. Maybe you know in-depthly about cells, even. But just imagine you're one cell, working down in there, in the heart and the skin. Maybe you're, a hair cell, who knows? How would that cell ever have a conscious capacity, ever know what it's like to be you? The whole body, you going to work for a day. You interacting with nature. It's outside the realm of the capacity of their reality to even grasp what that's about. It's not right or wrong. It's not good or bad. It's not they're stupid or they're less alive than we are. They are you. They are just as alive as you are. They are just as healthy as you are. And that's the truth in itself. So if you find yourself in dis-ease, you know where the answers lie. So, just like a cell couldn't really comprehend what it is to be a human being and have to go to school or work or, do mundane tasks, or even exciting tasks, or even have an idea of what it's like to ride a bike or fly in a plane, right? It's totally out of the realm of their experience. Now, if we turn the lens one side again, we can use the same metaphor to try or release the need to try to understand God, Source, the universe, the world outside this scope of reality, this level and capacity of thinking, Because we are but what? Cells inside the body of God. How could we ever think that we could get out to understand? It's not part of our coordinates. We're not divinely assigned that perspective right now. It's not good or bad, right or wrong, right? We have our own divinely set perspective, each one of us. And yet, just like every cell that makes the body up, they are one, right? A cell is a cell is a cell. Yes, they have different functions, and yes, they can reside in different areas and perform different tasks. They have different adaptations based on the medium that they're set within, right? Tissue, muscle, bone. Just like people, just like us on the earth. This is what we are one means. This is the truth inside understanding the concept of oneness. Seeing the planet, this reality, this whole biosphere of organic life, in understanding that's the one. And just like any cell could never say, no, we're better than this cell because we do this. No, this organ system's better than this one. No, they all need each other. They all do separate, independent things. They all rely on each other. And yet they're all also contained inside the body. They are all one thing, right? So this is the explanation. This is the echoing of the initial single truth of being. It says, I am. And inside the I am is the reflection, the casting out to others that they are too, that you are. And with that partnership of I am and you are, right? Here is the we. We are one. When we accept this, and when the secondary truth recognizes this uniting bond, it becomes the same single truth. It's a reflection of this one truth. And it asks each other to honor it, in turn, that we are both capable of being, and that we are both wanting this resonance of what is true for us, and to shine out that which resonates with us. Now, I sort of have gone in a roundabout way and spoke out loud sort of the things in my blog that I have typed out. I'm going to just go down a little ways here and wrap up my little summation here. Sometimes it feels like, and it looks like, what we're doing, and even when we are seeking the truth, that it's sort of this point A to point B quest, right? From lies to truth. And that in itself is just a small piece of the path. And as so many times that, like I started talking about this beaten path around, right? Kind of think that it's A to B, B to C, C to D. But before you know it, you realize it's a circle, it's a cycle around. And you say, hey, I feel like I've been here before. Seems kind of familiar. And then you go around again. This is something that I've done myself. And you'll go around it and around it. And then sometimes, even as I feel, right, you think foolishly that you've made a complete way around and you've been every angle. And then all of a sudden you'll notice an untouched area of ground that you haven't completely beaten down and covered yet. And then you have to go around it and explore it. And that new path will connect with the same old points at some time. And through experience and wisdom of walking in somewhere that you haven't been yet, from here to there and back again, you start to realize and understand it isn't just these little sections of straight linear A to B, direction. It's a circle, it's a cycle. And in fact, it isn't just one circle around. It's this figure eight. It's a lemniscatic double circling of back and forth. And that what's happening is the in-between spaces become the placeholder, and in those circles around, you find the images of truth. And you must circle around these same images for a long time in order to really see what you're looking at. And, it can sound really vague, it can sound out there, but when you start to get through the work, you'll really be able to hear that truth in there. Yeah, but I do, and like I'm saying here in the blog, I've just noticed, I do assure you that these metaphysical blabberings that I'm going on about here are not as frivolous and fluffy as they appear. There's weight in them. But only if you choose to recognize it. Then to admit it to yourself. And then to incorporate that knowledge into your actual reality. This is it, right? This is the catch-22 for the quest of truth. This is the momentum that keeps these things going here, because the truth is individual to each of us. And the quest for truth is individual. And it's up to the creator consciousness witnessing to go through these points on their own. And to find it for themselves, because truth is inside each fractal of creator consciousness. It holds their own truth within it. They have the right to tailor fit, to alter or distort that one truth in whatever fashion they desire, for whatever reasoning they deem is worthy. This is the true law of free will. Or as Ra from the Book of One refers to it, the law of chaos. I really love this, calling it the law of chaos instead of the law of free will, because it sparks change. It's catalytic. It kind of could spark fear and anxiety, and I came from a place where chaos would make me fearful and anxious, to find the fun, the mystery and excitement in it has been so freeing for me that I really hope to encourage others that if that triggers you straight away and you're right, want to be back at free will and don't want to look at it as chaos, I encourage you to do your own shadow and light work around what kind of things you're tagging into chaos. Because much like everything, it is a tool, it is a word. It doesn't have a positive or negative affliction. It doesn't have a polarity. It's how a person, a being of energetic exchanges, chooses to use the tool with their system that creates a charge or polarity. And the word doesn't hold a charge. The being holds the charge because they're responsible for the creation with the tool. Their world holds that charge, incorporates it, is responsible for acting with it. So yeah, again, it's all about how you choose to see it. Just reading through here, go into a little bit about how cultures have all come across the same one truth, except in different ways, and why and how we can relax into a comfortable confirmation of these many different versions. Instead of allowing them to pick at or degrade or say our version's less likely because they have another version out there. If instead we could say, oh, wait a minute, if everyone has this sort of core truth version that they're building up upon, that's a beautiful thing to know that it is within each of us. And it doesn't matter the coordinates, the biosphere, the traditions and culture that you choose and are a part of this time around. That those are just alterations or tailor-fitting that we're each doing and allowed to do and supposed to do, right? To make it our own, to live out this expression, this chance of creator consciousness, you know? So this is really, again, cycling back and saying, this is the truth. This is the true work at hand, and it is the one truth. When we can really reside comfortably in understanding there's only one thing happening here, and that because, you know, there is a here and now and something happening here, that means that there must be purpose, right? We don't see function and organization sprouting out of nothingness, right? There is, in essence, a purpose behind organization, right? Behind processes. And if we could just settle in to that thick foundation of this strong truth, you know, the floor we're all standing on, and accept that because we're on this floor, because I have this awareness of my life and this free will within me to choose and decide to do whatever I like, to think however I choose to think, maybe we could agree, right, that there's a purpose here, that it matters how we act and what we do here, and that there is this calling forth or a current flow to something after. It's that simple, because when we reside in this sort of truth of isness and of being, well, it's quite plain to see that if there's a here and now, there must be a before and an after, right? If you could accept eternity, foreverness, then you must believe there is something after. Because we see this cyclic happening. Life, death, day, night, the seasons, the changes. And to me, it's the same note of the one truth, the same pattern, the same beaten path around the same center point, which remains yet undefined. But I mean, to be and to do the work is the answer. It's not so much of what the focus is, of how the appearance is, but in the doing. And that's really, you know, what I have found to be the source of motivation, a beautiful flow of energy, this eternal flame that I talk about within me a lot. The fuel, the logs on my fire are these thick, strong notions of truth. The isness, the being, the unexplainable pieces that just sit there while others burn away, like ash, like chaff before the wind. There is things which have weight and remain, and that which is blown away and leaves. So it's, again, back to the paradox and back to the cycles. This is the truth. So I feel like for someone who's attempting to define something in plain language, I have kind of, again, floated away into this sort of fantastical language and metaphors. But to me, that's where the fun is. It's been my role and purpose, speaking, crafting language, discussing, exploring, defining what I'm seeing. As all those things fuel me and light me up. So I'm sure that's why I always find myself circling back around these sort of beautiful landscapes. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed my talk and walk through this discussion of the truth and attempt to define it in my own terms. If you are interested in reading the blog and seeing the typed out version with some of the things that I didn't talk about here, you could find the link. Or always just go directly to my website, amariespeaks.com, and you'll see the side menu has a whole link for blogs, and you can see all the blogs I've written over the years there. Or, you can always catch me in the meantime on YouTube or over on Telegram under A. Marie Speaks on both platforms. I thank you so much for spending this time with me and listening. I hope you have a beautiful day or evening wherever in the world you are. Thank you for your beautiful contribution to our collective. I thank you so much for witnessing mine, and I will talk to you next time.